Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our Elevate Your Career event here at our amazing London offices here at Amazon. Thank you for those of you who have joined us in person and for those who are joining remotely, wherever you may be. My name's James Witcher and I'm thrilled to be your host today. I'm a 5.5-year Amazonian, joined as a recruiter in our reliability, maintenance and engineering team, and I'm now currently a recruitment manager for our OpsTech talent acquisition team. What is Elevate Your Career? Elevate Your Career is your exclusive backstage pass and a first-hand look at how our tech teams in London are shaping the future of e-commerce and logistics, not only for our customers in the UK, but for customers across the globe. From robotics and automation to data science and software engineering, the innovations happening within Ops are truly game-changing. The best part about it is we are looking for passionate, talented and curious people like yourselves to come with us on the journey. So what do we have in store today? First off, Stephen Wade. Stephen is our Global Director of OpsTech Solutions Deployment. He will take you on a deep dive into some of the exciting things his org is working on and an inside look at some of the fulfillment tech and robotics that are being implemented across our customer fulfillment network. After that, we'll move to Jeff Abbott, who will moderate a day in the life panel discussion with Anna, George, and Priyanka. They'll share the rewarding experiences they've had, challenges they've had to overcome on the way, and the proud moments on seeing their work have a tangible impact on our customers. And then finally, we'll move on to a little section with Amy and myself discussing the Amazon recruitment process and how to interview at Amazon, giving you a little bit of an inside look at all the steps that are involved, how you can best prepare. And in addition, there'll be some tips and tricks that we'll share on how to make your CV stand out from the crowd, so when it's reviewed by a recruiter at Amazon or elsewhere, you can stand out from anyone else. So as we are about to begin, I just want to say, as we go through this event today, we hope that you can see the incredible opportunities that could be in store for you. Because whether you're an experienced tech professional or just starting out, this is your chance to elevate your own career to new levels. So let's get started. I'm pleased to introduce Stephen Wade, Global Director of OpsTech Solutions Deployment. Thank you and enjoy the event.
So firstly, thanks for everyone to have a live audience is pretty cool, and a virtual audience as well. I want to give you a quick bit of background about myself, but interestingly, it took me 3 goes to get into Amazon. So you're already ahead of what I went through. When I first interviewed for Amazon, I wasn't prepared, didn't go through an Elevate process. I didn't go through an Elevate process the second time either, but the third time I got lucky and joined Amazon. I was able to have last 9 years a pretty cool roller coaster. So some intros to me. So I'm a Director of IT Deployment. What that means is my team helps support any IT infrastructure deployment in our logistics buildings globally. So whether it's we're launching new buildings, whether we're doing lifecycle or retrofit type programs, I have a team of 200 people, everywhere from India to Brazil to Middle East, all over the world, basically deploying IT infrastructure globally. And I'm hoping today I will get a little bit of inspiration to you, give a little bit of inspiration to you guys to potentially apply for joining Amazon. And I'm hoping to show you some cool stuff that we're working on. So let's just talk about some of the purpose of fulfillment technology robotics. So my group, OpsTech Solutions, is part of the greater fulfillment technology robotics, or what we call FTR group, right? So this team is responsible for the technology, the robotics technology, the fulfillment engine that helps us run fulfillment globally in our network. And our customers are sort of 2 different customers. We look at 2 different customers. One is our associate, so our Ops associate. How do we make their lives easier? How do we improve safety? And then we also have our customer, our end customer, who actually orders packages from us. And those customers want faster delivery. They want quality, they want their packages to arrive in quality. So all of the technology that we're building, how we deploy those technologies, are serving those 2 individual customers. And our ultimate goal, obviously, is to improve the customer experience. So I'm hoping today we'll be able to go through basically what FTR does, show some products that we're looking to deploy, so give you some inspiration on what type of products we deploy, and an overview of some of the functions that I'm part of. So first, before we even start, I want to sort of go through what happens in the customer journey when they submit an order. So what is the magic behind all of these orders, and how does FTR support them? Very, very high level. I won't go through it in much detail because I'm presuming a lot of you are actually Amazon customers. But ultimately, when you order a package, you get a customer promise, right? You say it's going to be next day delivery. And in particularly, we're starting in UK and particularly in US, they have same day delivery. So if you order before a specific time, you get your order on the same day. All of that requires a lot of innovation, a lot of technology, which FTR supports. And again, we'll show you some of those cool products and services that enables us to have same day delivery. So when you order your package, there's a few different steps that happen, right? So we got to basically have, wherever the package that you order has to come from the nearest fulfillment center to where you live, and it has to be fulfilled. And that fulfillment is, how do we locate a package? So find that package in a building, how do we pack it, and then how do we ship it, right? From the first mile, we call it first mile, the first part of the journey of our customer order. And all of those different aspects, we're trying to build safer solutions for associates. We're trying to reduce our costs, obviously, because we can reduce our costs. We reduce the customer costs at the end. And how do we improve delivery, right, and at speed? So all those different things we're trying to achieve here. But once the order's fulfilled, there is more to the journey than that. It might have to go over air. It might have to go over transport or trucking or even rail. And all of those different things, again, need different technologies, needs different robotics, needs different support and maintenance requirements, which adds to the overall complexity of what we need to deliver, which actually makes what we do pretty cool. Yes, we have our own planes. If everyone wants to know, we have our own planes and we support our own journey around planes. But interestingly, a couple of years back, we launched our first air hub building. This is a very large robotic building where planes actually arrive at the dock door, and we actually load planes within the shipping area, which is pretty cool. So rather than trucks, we're actually loading planes. And then the very last part of the process is last mile. So the package has to go to the nearest delivery station to your home, sort all those packages into a route, and within that route, then the driver takes those packages and delivers them. Again, there's other technology around that whole process. And we're only really day one. I know it's a cliche saying, you hear it a lot in Amazon, but really only day one in how, and the opportunities and the challenges we face in order, again, to reduce costs, increase speed, and enable our scaling factor. So that's a little bit about the order process. So what are the toughest challenges we have for our customers? I want to go through these sort of challenges in more depth, but I want to look at it with two lenses. I want to speak about OpsTech Solutions, which is the team I'm part of, and also FTR, or Amazon Robotics, Fulfillment Technology Robotics, because that's where we're hiring today, and that's the overall group that we want to talk to. I want to talk about some of the challenges. So if you can imagine, we have in Amazon peaks and off peaks. So you just came through Amazon Prime Week, right? And now we've got peak during Christmas. Well, that's a massive challenge, right? We've got to build technology in our buildings that's low cost, that serves for this peakiness, right? And peakiness is hard because you need to maybe hire people temporarily, then not hire, so you got to keep your building operating at its optimal. All those challenges is some of the challenges robotics face, right? Because we obviously have to make sure that when we introduce this automation technology, it's at the right cost point for us to obviously enable Amazon to grow, okay? I want to introduce you to teams within FTR, right? So who are the teams? And you would see some of the jobs being applied to some of these teams within Europe. So first of all, we have what's called Amazon Fulfillment Technology. Some of you might know SAP, SAP, Oracle, these warehouse management systems. We can imagine Amazon needed to design its own. We're so big as an organization, we have to design our own. And we have to integrate that technology engine with all the robotic systems that we have. So within the FTR group, we have our own software team that develops the AFT technology engine and develops that integration with all our robotic solutions. So our own warehouse management system, for want of a better word. Then we have the group that I'm part of, OpsTech Solutions. So OpsTech Solutions really is the backbone of FTR. In other words, the network, the wide area networks, the LAN networks, the wireless network, all the compute, the end devices associates use. We design and support and maintain that globally. We've got thousands of people doing that across the globe. It's a very big organization. And really proud to be part of that organization. For the last 9 years, I haven't moved from this organization. Sometimes people in Amazon move to different teams, but I've been lucky to grow within OpsTech solutions. And I'll go through some of our cool products in a few minutes. Then we have worldwide design engineering. So you can imagine when we have all these robotics, we have to put that into CAD drawings. We have to optimize the design for our buildings. We have to understand the ROI of those robotic solutions. This design team helps integrate those new solutions and also looks at the future, the building of the future, right? Designing our buildings of the future. And we have a very big worldwide design team as part of FDR. Then we have what's really exciting is Amazon Robotics, right? They're the teams that design the software for mechatronics, the software for all the robotics. They help design those solutions. They partner with the most innovative companies in the world on some of the robotic hardware. The Amazon Robotics buildings are the ones building all this cool stuff I hope to show you later. And then finally, we talk about mechatronics, sustainability, and packaging, right? So one of the key things we have within Amazon is our net zero pledge. So how do we reduce our carbon footprint? You would have seen recently an announcement around dunnage, potentially. So how we are going from a plastic-based dunnage to a paper-based dunnage. This team is the one innovating in that. This team owns how we pack our goods, how we reduce our cardboard that we use, how do we optimize it, how do we go more ship-in-own container, SIOC, we call it SIOC, where we can ship the goods in its own container without cardboard packaging, and how do we reduce waste and drive quality. So this team basically drives that end-to-end. So that's a bit about FDR. So I want to talk about scale, right? Because I think for me, joining Amazon, the hardest part for me was the Amazon scale. I'm lucky to join 9 years ago when Amazon was scaling differently, as in it was super fast, but it was just, we were skyrocketing. We were building all these new solutions. But scale is probably the hardest thing to navigate if you ever join Amazon, because it's not like most other companies. Not many other companies in the world operating at scale. To operate at scale, though, we live in a very matrix environment. We've got thousands of different functions and teams within Amazon. So as we build that scale, we're looking for people that are really collaborative, can work across multiple functions. So within FDR, we've got to partner with safety teams because our technology must be safe, and they need to review the quality of our products with regard to safety. We've got to work with continuous improvement teams. So you bring something into an operations center, how do we build the processes around that? How do we ensure they're optimized? All these different teams, we have to collaborate and work together. And a lot of these teams are the ones requesting new designs and new products for us. So you can imagine at Amazon scale how busy we are collaborating and trying to figure out how we optimize our warehouses. Second part obviously is design. So we design solutions. As we design solutions, there we're prototyping. We're working in a lab environment. We're building those robotic solutions, or in my case, network and infrastructure solutions or device solutions. We're testing them in prototyping environment or lab environment. We're figuring out, is this the right solution? Is it the right cost point? Do we want to move forward with this particular product? And which products do we actually want to invest in? Our design teams own that, and then obviously we've got to go test. Testing is not testing in a lab environment, it's going out into our buildings and testing these products. And then it's scale. So once we've tested, we need to deploy these products at scale. For me, and some of the stuff we'll talk about today is, I get very heavily involved in test and scale. Others are more involved in design. But every one of these functions need to collaborate with different teams. That's probably the hardest part of working with Amazon. So let's talk about scale and give you an example. So here we have an example of what we call a Robin launch. This specific robot actually has basically processed well over 1 billion parcels at this stage, right? And what we're trying to do is, it's an induct process, but as we induct, we're inducting what's called singularization. So the robot is picking a specific product, and it's allowing us to sort that product to a delivery lane. In other words, we want to sort it to the correct truck that has to go ship that product to the end customer. And this specific robot is removing the requirement for associates who are doing repetitive tasks. Ultimately, this robot is sorting these parcels and then putting them into the right shipping lane, all in an autonomous way. But from a scale perspective, and how does that impact scale? Well, we got to bring this product into existing buildings and new buildings. We have to install all the electric infrastructure. For some of you guys who might want to work in supply chain, we've got to work with manufacturers to supply that infrastructure into the buildings. We've got to install it. And then we've got to configure, obviously, the backbone and the software side, which is all driven in AWS. Nearly all of our software runs within AWS, and we're trying to push as much into the cloud as possible. And then within my own group, within OpsTech Solutions, well, we're helping design a network for that particular new robotic solution. We're helping incorporate that device onto our network. We're helping with monitoring solutions for that particular device. And then obviously, some of these devices are managed through third-party vendors. We don't want to have to, at our scale, have a third-party vendor sit in a building. So we have to be able to securely allow these vendors connect to these devices and manage and support them remotely. So that's just an example of some of the scaling solutions that we have within Amazon Robotics. So I want to go through some products with you, what they are, and bear in mind that I don't work with these teams, so I'm going to try my best to explain some of them. But one of these robotics, one of the newer robotics is called Sparrow. Really interesting robot, because this robot using computer vision has to go select a particular ASIN or a particular product and then sort it into a specific container. And the reason why we do this is because we want to consolidate. So you can imagine in Amazon, if we're sorting to these containers, or where you see these gray boxes, we want to fill them to the max, right? Because we want to increase the density of the cube in our building, which makes us a lot more efficient. And often that's a very time-consuming and repetitive task for associates. Well, this robot can identify those products, manipulate them, handle them, and put them in the correct container, right? Which is pretty cool when you think about all the different products that we have to manipulate. In addition, if you think about it, we have so many different products. What we don't want is an associate picking a product that looks similar. So the technology in this is able to recognize what product it is, split some of those products out into the relevant totes, so that way we're increasing the quality we have in our buildings. So a really important robot. Next robot I want to speak about is Proteus. So you probably see some of the videos of what we call drive units. Drive units driving product around their buildings. Well, the next iteration of that is driving these specific carts. These carts you're seeing here are the ones that are sorted. So when we sort the packages at the last stage of our fulfillment, they have to go to the shipping area, right, for us to ship them out to our products or put them on trucks. Well, that's a very labor-intensive task for our associate, right? They're pushing, they're pulling. It can add risk to safety. So this particular robot is the first of its kind within Amazon that's autonomous. In other words, it can work with associates working around it. It's clever enough to know what people are working around it. And it was designed to be able to lift these 800-pound plus carts and move them to a shipping area all autonomously, which is really, really cool. And we're just starting to trial these in large centers at the moment. Okay, this is Smart Pack. So we spoke about a little bit of packaging and the dunnage reduction, or dunnage going to paper. Well, this is an iteration to Smart Pack. In other words, how do we pack items automatically without having the need for associates to do, again, labor-intensive work packing boxes? But also, we don't want to use dunnage at all, right? Because we want to reduce our paper impact. Well, this particular device is able to maximize or minimize the amount of cardboard that we use, auto-pack the particular package, and then put a shipping label on it and send it off to our conveyance for sortation. So yeah, another cool device. One other really cool fact about this device is that normally we pack through plastic. You might have seen in UK, you've got items in these plastic packaging. Well, that was true our old Smart Pack. The new Smart Pack is all paper-based. They've even looked at the paper to make sure it's a waterproof to a level, so if it rains, it doesn't get destroyed. So some really cool innovation. Recycling, sustainability, it's such a big area for Amazon. And these Smart Pack machines, again, are being deployed across our fulfillment network globally. So I want to talk a bit about the field, because that's my passion. I've been an IT manager in the field. I've done many different jobs in the field. I'm from a military background myself, so the field is important for me. And I wanted to talk about a little bit about the roles that are in the field and different teams that we have. So first, if we look at, I've asked the recruitment team to come back to me with sort of where we have our top hiring areas. So we've got engineering project managers in our robotics team. We also need logistics people, so people who can manage the supply chain. We spoke about it earlier, like getting robots to the building is not hard. It's got many different components. The bill of materials are massive. All of that needs automation. All of that needs people to think about how we supply these particular components. And we're hiring logistics people. We also have tech project managers and program managers, and we have IT field support engineers and managers. So I started off my career in Amazon as an IT support manager, what seems like many decades ago, but it was only 9 years ago. So let's talk about tech deployment. So I want to talk about two different teams that are hiring a lot in Amazon at the moment. So first we have tech deployment. But tech deployment are a team, they're hiring a lot of engineering project managers because we're starting to scale our robotics into existing buildings and new buildings across Europe and APAC globally, but for the roles in Europe, it's for both Europe and APAC as well, so Japan, etc. And this team has to do a lot of collaboration. We spoke about collaboration. They have to work with the teams on the ground to test and prototype some of these robotic solutions that are coming from our design teams. They have to develop key performance indicators, or KPIs, to say, okay, are these devices performing to what we planned or designed them for? And they're collaborating with those different teams on safety, ops teams, to bring those particular pieces of robotics into our buildings. In addition then, once we're prototyping, well, then they're looking at scale. So as we launch new buildings, as we retrofit existing buildings, this team is managing getting those robotics into the buildings, handing them off to operations, and getting them operationalized. So there's a big area for us to scale. And then my group, OTS, or OpsTech Solutions. So we're designing, building, deploying, as I spoke about, network infrastructure, IT end user infrastructure. But as we can see, the complexity is really challenged when I just give you a snapshot of what we did last year. So we deployed 222 MDFs. So that's decentralized data centers in our large buildings. Over 1,400 IDFs. For those who don't know, IDFs are individual distribution frames. They're where all our switching infrastructure, where all our devices and peripheral devices get connected into our network. And over 500,000 end devices. And you can see we've touched over 2,000 sites. And actually, we've probably hit 2,000 sites 3 or 4 times for all of these individual projects. So that leads to scale and leads to issues. And we're looking for really bright people to join OTS that can help us build that scale. IT engineers, IT managers, project managers to help us scale all these products, because we're being asked by our customers internally to go quicker, get into infrastructure deployed at scale quicker, and that all adds to complexity, particularly when you see the volume of infrastructure that we have to deploy year over year. So I want to talk about 2 different products as an example, because I'm trying to excite you guys, right? I'm trying to get you guys wanting to join Amazon. So a few different things. So Fulfillment Fabric Network. Most of the world, not all, but most of the world is run on layer 2 networking. And for those who work in networking, you might have heard of broadcast storms and spanning tree protocol. Well, that hit us. So we had a lot of high severity incidents in our buildings because we plugged in a device that shouldn't be plugged into the wrong port. We created what's called a loop. And then we have a broadcast storm and it takes the entire network down. The challenge we have, though, is in Amazon, of course, with scale, we're growing so big, our existing technology can only support up to 40 IDFs. And we got to compound that 4x, right? So the teams went away, and our engineering teams went into my organization and created layer 3 routing local area networks. So it means we could limit the blast radius in our building to 1 IDF. We could grow to a lot more IDFs. The Air Hub site I just discussed earlier, this big air gateway where planes are getting loaded, that building can have 0 downtime. So we're told design the network so that we have 0 downtime. The teams were able to build a dual MDF solution. So in other words, we could have more than 1 MDF. We already have business continuity in the MDF. Now we could lose a whole MDF and still keep the building operational. So we've gone away to do that, and there's been some really cool technology. An interesting point to note is that we worked with one of our network infrastructure suppliers. I won't name names, but one of the features they added for this solution actually was patented, and we helped create the patent with them. So that's the level of innovation and scale we have to come up with, because the solutions that we have to build have to handle, obviously, our scale within Amazon. Then we have software-defined wide area network. So this has been around for a while. For those who probably know about SD-WAN. But again, SD-WAN obviously helps reduce our incidents around circuits. But if you can imagine, within our group, we have thousands of circuits deployed across all of our buildings. We actually have hundreds of carriers that we deal with. And we have to have LEC diversity, or local exchange carrier diversity, for every site. So in other words, you've got to have 2 circuits with last mile diversity. So we had a lot of challenges, and our teams went away to design SD-WAN as a solution. 2 big things they looked to do was incorporate that. Well, if we have 2 circuits, how do we even add more business continuity? Well, they've integrated 5G networks into that solution, so we have a tertiary solution. Some buildings can run on 5G, but at least we can remote the network if both circuits go down. And the final piece of the puzzle is SD-WAN, as we grow it, as we scale it, as we deploy it across thousands of buildings, to manage that is going to be difficult. So for most companies, they use third-party orchestration tools to deploy configurations. We don't. We build our own orchestration tools to handle the scale. So we've built our own orchestration to integrate with this solution, which allows us to maintain those devices, thousands of devices at one time, in one go, without having to do one individual site at a time. And then the last piece, last thing for this is, when we deploy SD-WAN, it's very it's hot swappable. We call it hot swappable. You can plug and play it, right? So you connect it to the network, it downloads the config automatically. And all of the orchestration tools that we've built enables that as part of that solution. So that's it for me. There is a job link here for any of you interested. Please apply. I'm on LinkedIn. Stephen Wade's my name. Happy to support you guys. You connect to me. And if you have any questions, and I really hope you have a good career and good journey. Thank you.
Thanks, Stephen. It was really good to hear about, I guess, the cool and innovative robotics that we're launching, and how we're trying to scale, add speed, reduce cost, but ultimately it still comes back to delighting our customers, right? So it's really good to see. Does anybody have any questions for Stephen? I think we can take a couple if there are any at this moment in time. Yep.
For your networks, your FFM.
I can. There we go. Sorry, 2 seconds. Apologies.
I think you had is it on? I think for your fulfillment fabric networks, you said you needed 100% availability, but then you had 99.99. So I assume that's not across different regions. So if you have a natural disaster, are you doing regional, like Route 53 or something across different networks?
Yeah.
So just to repeat if you didn't hear, so he's talking about the 5 nines or our availability, and the fact that I said we need 100% uptime. So the 100% uptime is for that air gateway site. Like, you can imagine the amount of money it costs to have planes sitting on the ground. And if you lose that sort center, it's a very big sort center, there's a high cost to Amazon, but also a cost to our customer because we're sorting so many packages through that building. It's a 1 million plus square foot building. In that particular environment, we've had 2 MDFs, we've got 4 circuits, we've added a huge amount of redundancy to get 100% availability. Nothing's perfect, but we designed the network or the backbone of the network for 100% availability. But the 5 nines I'm speaking about is for the other buildings that we don't have dual MDS for. Of course, we have the odd outage. We could have an IDF failure, you have software failures, but we've reduced those to very minimum. We don't have any spanning tree issues like we've had before, which is a big problem for us. And this layer 3 solution, which uses a VXLAN, I'm not sure if you've ever heard of VXLAN technology, eBGP routing, all of that infrastructure is what maintains those 5 nines for that particular network type.
Perfect. Anybody else with any other questions at all? Yep.
Hi, good afternoon. You said you started your career as an IT support manager. So how did you move into your current role?
Give me a really hard question now. Okay, I started off as an IT manager. I actually started off as an individual contributor. So last mile, I was talking about last mile. There was no last mile in UK when I started. We were just starting to ship our own packages to last mile. And they hired me to come in and look at the service and support and how we're going to deliver IT support for these new last mile warehouses. I suppose how I navigated my career, when I saw a problem, I put my hand up and said I want to work on it, or I saw a problem and I just wanted to go and actually try and solve it. And for that reason, as I started solving things, they said, "Oh, can you manage this team and do your last job?" I said, "Okay." Can you manage this UK team? I said, "Okay." Now, can you manage a European team? I said, "Okay." And then we started working on this global deployment. So I suppose I just put my hand up. I volunteered. When I saw a problem, I went away and tried and fix it. And I wasn't fearful of just the ambiguity of working in Amazon and its scale and all the different partners, people you've got to partner with to solve problems, because change is hard in Amazon. It's not easy. But I suppose that's how I navigated my career. I'm sure there was a bit of luck involved as well. But like I said, I tried to join Amazon for 3 different times or 3 different occasions. The third time was lucky, and believe it or not, the third time I applied for Amazon interview, I said, that's it. If I don't get it this time, I ain't applying again. But I was lucky to have someone that was very close to me who worked for Amazon previously. I got those valuable insights that you're getting here today, and I had to apply them in the interview process. And that got me, I feel, over the line. And once I was in then, I took the opportunity to try and grow while I'm in. And yeah, hope that answers your question.
Perfect. Oh, one more. We got time for one more?
Yeah,
we'll take one more.
So you talked about quite a lot of robots that you've developed. So is there an internal platform where people come up with, okay, we've got a problem, this is a potential solution? Do you have an internal platform where you take ideas through to deployment and then to the end?
So yes, but I say it's not perfect. Okay, it's very, very complex. So as you're probably aware, Amazon's very data driven. Everything is data driven through data, right? So we have intake processes, we have different funnels where we create operational planning on what investments we need to go after, but it's very, very rigorous. So some of the ideas come from just data we have in our warehouses, and you go, right, this is the area that will have the biggest impact. Some of it might be, where do we have the biggest associate risk, safety risk, and what robotic products we can develop to help with associates. And some of it might be through someone on the ground saying, this is a massive problem. I want to put a white paper together, present it back to our team to say, this is the impact it would have if you could scale this globally. So there's multiple avenues, I would say. It's not easy, it's complex. There are multiple teams that come up with ideas and have to answer them, but it's up to the FTR team and our strategic teams to go, okay, where do we have the biggest impact? Where do we invest the most? And it's not just about fixing current problems, but it's also looking into the future. So some of the solutions you saw today are actually were developed 5-6 years ago. In the future, we're going to have big issues sorting packages, for example. We're going to have these issues around how we autonomously have a robot work in a room with full of people. So the teams were slowly developing these solutions, and a lot of these are what we call primitives. I'm not sure if you ever, Andrew Jassy had his talk, his shareholder talk previously, was talking about primitives. In other words, when we develop solutions, often those solutions will morph into other things. Like that Proteus drive you saw earlier, it's sorting these carts. Well, in the future, it's probably going to do large packets. Imagine we're shipping fridges and freezers. You can imagine these robots sorting those in our warehouses autonomously. So all of these things will morph into other things as they get developed, which I think is pretty cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Cheers, Stephen. Thank you. So now we're going to move on to the next section of today's event, which is a roundtable panel discussion. A roundtable panel discussion around a day in the life, moderated by Jeff Abbott and featuring George, Priyanka, and Anna. So, welcome. Pop up onto the chairs there. Thank you. Yeah.
My name is Jeff Abbott, and as James said, I will be moderating the roundtable discussion today with Anna, Priyanka, and George. Okay, so I'm at Amazon just under 5 years at the moment. Always worked in recruitment, and I'm based in Cork in Ireland. Okay, so we'll just let the panel members each introduce themselves. So Anna, do you want to start us off?
Sure, I can start. Welcome everyone, and nice meeting you face-to-face and folks also we have virtually. My name is Anna Collingo. I've been at Amazon for almost 9 years. At times feels much longer than that. At times feels just like yesterday, because I still feel 18. I lead the data and analytics team for the middle mile operations. Our team is called DNA, because we like that acronym. So I'm based out of London, not this building, which is one of the best flagship buildings we have, but just around the corner.
Brilliant.
Great.
We'll move on to Priyanka.
Yeah, my name is Priyanka, and it's really nice to meet all of you in person. And hi to everyone on YouTube. I've been with Amazon for almost 7 years, and I'm based in London. I lead the analytics team for worldwide ops risk compliance and European supply chain network. And yeah, I'm in this building, which for sure is the best building. Yeah.
Hey everyone, I'm George Blackler. I lead the UK robotics deployment team. I've been with Amazon for about 5 years now. My background's in mechanical engineering, so I started off my career in that, and then later on switched over to project management. So we basically look after the deployment of technologies that Stephen was talking about earlier.
Brilliant. So thanks for that, guys. So as the topic is, I suppose, joining Amazon, George, if you could kick us off, kind of what, I suppose, advice would you give to someone who's interested in joining Amazon, and what are the kind of key skills and qualities you look for when hiring for your team?
Yeah. So I think when we recruit, obviously, if you've been through a recruitment process or if you're in the process of applying at the moment, you'll notice that we focus a lot on leadership principles. That's part of the preparation that we have for interviews. But what I'd like to point out is that that's actually something we take on and use in our daily lives within Amazon. So might it be in the recruitment process, or might it be that you do get an offer and you join the company. I was pleasantly surprised that I find that all my decision making and all my career progression decisions are based around those leadership principles. So in daily life, whenever we are trying to figure out what's best for the business, we do reference those 16 LPs all the time. So that's something that for me is an advice for all future candidates. Don't just use it for the recruitment process, take it on board and use it in your daily life. That's something quite important, I'd say.
Yeah, no, really good advice. Really good, because I always kind of tend to speak to candidates and let them know that, yes, it's part of the journey for joining, but no matter what building you go to at Amazon, you'll see those leadership principles everywhere. You can't avoid them, so you might as well get used to them. Right, so Anna, kind of moving on to yourself, following up on George, do you have any kind of further tips yourself, and could you tell us about your recruitment journey at Amazon?
Yeah. What I can share is that I have applied probably for double-digit roles within Amazon since I've joined, right? And there are so many that I didn't get as well. But what I can share with you is that I always see the recruitment process as a two-way door, meaning that I see this as a good opportunity, obviously, for the hiring team to assess whether I'm the right candidate for the role, but also if the role is the right one for me at this specific point in my career. So my advice would be make sure that you have good grip on the questions that also you want to ask the interviewers, the questions that will make the decision easier for you to understand whether the role you're applying for is at the right time in your career. And I mean, as cheesy as it sounds, bring your true self during the interview.
Yeah, no, really good advice, because, again, when we speak to candidates, we let them know that it's, of course, we're interviewing them for a role, but you also have to be sure that the role you're interviewing for matches your goals and your career aspirations. So really good advice. And Priyanka, could you share, I suppose, some of the opportunities you've had since joining Amazon around your own growth, kind of career development, and I suppose how have you been able to kind of take on new challenges since working for Amazon?
Absolutely. So after my graduation in analytics, I joined Amazon as a business analyst because, as Anna said, I also applied to at least 50 roles in Amazon. All the hiring managers were, let's say, quite annoyed with me. But yeah, I started as a business analyst because that's the role I got. Like I had applied for data scientist, data engineer, all those fancy technical profiles as well. When I joined Amazon as a BA, I realized that maybe I'm more interested in the non-technical aspects of those projects, so I became a program manager. Then when I was a program manager, 1 year later, I was like, maybe I want to do more in native AWS technologies, so I became a data engineer. Then I realized, no, I missed the business element of like the day-to-day job, so I became a business intelligence engineer. And then when I was a business intelligence engineer, I used to work a lot with product managers across different countries and teams. So I was like, everyone keeps talking about that product manager is the most glamorous role. Maybe I should try that too. So I became a technical product manager. And then I realized that, no, actually, I don't like product management role as much as I thought I would. So I decided to come back as a business intelligence engineer. All this to say is that in Amazon, I have been very fortunate, and I think most people have been fortunate because they've had managers who support these bold decisions. I've been with Amazon in the US, India, Luxembourg, UK, and all this while it wouldn't have been possible without the support of Amazon. And I think that has been the highlight of my career, like being able to be living in 4 different countries in just a span of 6 years. It was quite interesting. Yeah.
I can imagine, and challenging.
And challenging, absolutely. Learning French while living in Luxembourg, that was one experience.
Yeah, no, really, really good. And kind of sticking with yourself, Priyanka, like obviously at Amazon, we all work extremely hard, right? There's a high bar, there's a lot of expectations on you, right? How do you kind of like manage your work-life balance in those scenarios? Is there anything in particular you do to kind of ensure that?
So, I mean, let's just first talk about Jeff Bezos.
Yeah.
I know that Jeff Bezos has always talked about work-life harmony rather than work-life balance, because truly, like, if something is not going well in your personal life, it affects your work, and same thing, if something is not going well in your work, it affects your personal life. So everyone needs to find that perfect harmony between those two parts of your life. Me personally, I have two very simple funda. Like, one is that Amazon is not a company that's saving lives. We don't run ambulances, we don't run fire brigades, those kinds of things. So everything can wait for a few more hours. Nothing is like so urgent that it has to be addressed now. To really inculcate that in my brain, what I've done is I've never had email on my phone. I've never had any instant messengers in my phone. I also encourage my team to not have those things on their phone, because really nothing is as urgent that I need your help by 9 p.m. And then the other thing is that I encourage like the young graduates in my team. I have a lot of people in my team who are from Imperial, UCL, King's College, different universities within London. I tell them to leave their laptop at work if they know that tomorrow they're going to be at work, so they can have really a hard balance between their work and their life. And work out a schedule that works the best for you. Talk to your manager. There's always a room for flexibility. No, those are the three things that I would say work best for me.
Yeah, no, really, really good point. Anna, George, is there anything you could add to that, or is it kind of similar to Priyanka?
Oh, plus one on,
Yeah,
on what Priyanka
same,
said, of course. One thing that I would also advise is when you're able to set your boundaries, be very transparent and open with people around you, your support network, and do include your managers and peers in that support network. I'll give you some practical examples, right? I have team members in my organizations that obviously have very different priorities and very different schedule when it comes to reconciling their family with their work, with other appointments or hobbies that they might have. So we're very open in sharing, for instance, what are the rules for setting management meetings? What are the rules for having the right time to wind down at the end of the day? What are the right rules that we can share in that transparency, in that openness of communication that I as a leader can support, and then as leaders of their also organizations can also support with them, their teams. So show transparency, be very open with the support network you have around you.
Really good, really good. And George, we'll move on to you next, mate. So like, how would you describe the kind of work culture at Amazon from your perspective around kind of the pace, the expectations?
Yeah. So Amazon has a peak. So usually we have a time of the year that we have a lot of customer orders compared to the other times of the year. I'd find that most teams within Amazon, most business areas will have their own peak. It might be the same as the customer fulfillment one. It might be slightly different. But basically, you can usually plan around when you're going to be most busy of the year. So what I try to do personally is, I know when it's going to be quite tight, and I try to basically allocate the time for those periods of the year that it's going to be a bit busier. And I basically try to run my sort of work-life balance harmony in a similar way that I would run a project as well. So I try to say, okay, I know this is going to happen in 3 months. Let's see how much things I can do in advance, so I'm less stressful during that time of the year, basically.
Brilliant.
So I try to take take that part of it into work.
Fantastic. Really, really good. Really good way of looking at it. And Anna, coming back to yourself, so what, in your opinion, and I'm sure all the audience here today will be very interested, kind of sets Amazon apart as an employer? So like, is there any kind of unique opportunities you've been able to take advantage of to kind of progress your own career within Amazon?
Yeah, let me tell you a bit more about myself. So I've joined Amazon 9 years ago, straight from university. And I've joined Amazon field operations. So I've joined as a shift manager, not knowing anything about operations in my life. I didn't know what a pump truck even was, let alone telling my family that I was moving pallets or having responsibility over people on a shift. 4 years down the line, after being promoted a couple of times and having changed a few roles, I left operations as a site manager, so I was leading one site in London, and I wanted to go back to my university background. I'm an industrial engineer. So I decided to move to a business analytics role, and then decided to pivot my career towards there. And pretty similar to what Priyanka mentioned, I realized that maybe the hybrid between business and tech is what I like doing the most. So what about business intelligence? I can pivot there. And I moved to a business intelligence team. And I was in Europe and realized, well, I want to understand if there are nuances or differences across different regions. So let's move to North America. And then while in North America, I also realized, well, actually, we have an opportunity to move across the globe. So can we create a global team that can find synergies? And I ended up leading a global team for business intelligence. This to say that Amazon, for me, has allowed me to have, in 9 years, probably, 3 different careers, and has allowed me to change roles, test, and experiment. And I think what really sets Amazon apart from many other employers is that the breadth of the business. You can actually find multiple careers within the same company, just pivoting and testing and experimenting around that. And I mean, I don't know what's coming next in my career, but you know, like change has been constant. Exactly. So let's see. We'll talk to you in 2 years' time. I'll let you know.
Yeah, and I think that's another kind of unique aspect of Amazon, as Anna touched on, that the role you come in on isn't, as Anna discussed, the role you will necessarily finish on. So it's a really, really unique company in that regard, that there are this wide breadth of opportunities, you know, to travel, to kind of take on new challenges and everything that goes with it. Right, so Priyanka, kind of coming back to yourself, in regards to the work you do, you obviously work kind of a lot of collaboratively with cross-functional teams. Can you kind of give us an overview as to kind of some of the projects you've worked on maybe, and how that's kind of helped you grow professionally, and some of the things you've learned from other teams?
Yeah, so leading the global analytics team for ops risk and compliance, I do get to work with teams in legal, in finance, in marketing, and most importantly, like different compliance officers across different regions and departments. One particular example that I'd like to talk about today is this regulation passed by FDA, which is called Food Traceability Law, which basically mandates Amazon to store, let's say, the production level details of every product that Amazon sells, which could be food. So products like peanut butter, all those nut butters, products which have dairy elements, etc. If we think about this problem, there are 2 ways to solve this problem. Either we can ask our suppliers to provide us this information, or we can develop technology so that we can read this information directly, which is printed on the packaging of these products. So maybe you guys can observe it next time when you go home and you see a chocolate bar, you will see that there is something called lot number written on it. Customer obsession is a very important leadership principle for Amazon, right? So I decided that it's just more customer obsessed to read this information from those product packages rather than adding one layer of friction between us and our upstream suppliers when we ask them to provide this information. So we worked with teams like legal, marketing, and all those teams, but we also worked with his team. I just realized it today, where we were asking our warehouses to share these images information with us. And then we built deep learning models on it using AWS Recognition, which is an AWS Bedrock tool, which uses optical character recognition. It's a simple computer vision model. And we started this model with an FN DPMO of less than 1,000, and our goal is to reach like a false negative DPMO of less than 500 by next year. So yeah, it was a really cool project.
Really
yes,
good.
I mean, it is a really cool project.
yeah. Still going.
Still going.
Brilliant. So I have a couple of more questions, guys, that I'd like to ask all 3 of you, if that's okay. All right. So George, we'll start with you, if that's all right, mate. So what is it, from your own personal point of view, that you enjoy working at Amazon, right? Is there kind of a particular aspect of the culture you enjoy, or what are your own thoughts?
Yeah. For me, it's the ability to innovate. So I think everyone, once they join Amazon, they get encouraged to present ideas. They find a gap. They see something's not quite working correctly. We're encouraged to say, okay, put your hand up and say, this can potentially be done better. And this is recognized by our senior leadership team, right? So we say, when we do see something that might not be working as well, we say, write a small proposal, write a white paper, write a document of any sort and say, maybe we could do this that way. These are the benefits, etc. And this is both recognized and also celebrated. I think in the some of the all hands that we have as a company, we have something called the Door Desk Award, which celebrates innovation. It's been going on since the creation of Amazon, and that's the sort of mentality we try to have as a company. You see something that's not working, put your hand up, regardless of what level of seniority you might be in the company. If it's a good idea, people will listen. So I like that.
Really good, really good. But and if any of you are successful at joining Amazon, get used to the term white paper. Okay, you'll be hearing it a lot. All right, so Priyanka, we'll move on to you next, please. Same question.
I think +1 to everything that George said. On top of that, I really like the ability to just do whatever you want. Like, there is no role which says you cannot do this role because you don't have the prior experience. Like, as we say, right, like Amazon is this mammoth of a company that has transportation, Prime Video, music, AWS, you name it, and we have it. You can literally decide from one day to be in transportation to the other day, I want to do the same role, but in Prime Video. Or maybe I want to join Alexa. And that is really like, that gives me the kick. Okay, tomorrow if I get bored, maybe I'll join Alexa and start something new. Or maybe I'll join Prime Video and like meet Taylor Swift one day. But yeah, that's what really excites me.
Brilliant,
Yeah.
brilliant.
Tons of idea for new pops. I like it. I like it. Same question?
Yeah, same question, please, Anna.
Can I cheat and
You
answer
can, of
with
course.
two?
Yeah,
Cool.
cheating good.
So I think the thing that I like the most about Amazon that got me staying in this company for 9 years and hopefully for the next 9 is the day one culture. It's pretty much similar to what also George mentioned, is that innovation and that ability to bring that level of curiosity and change bottom up. But it's also, I would say, the fact that Amazon, quite uniquely, has been able to grow into a large corporate that we know, still maintaining a startup type of mindset, which I think is a balance that probably just Amazon has. And then second, because I said I was going to cheat, is that I think I got to work, and I still get to work, with very inspiring leaders. And by leaders, I don't mean people that are above me in the chain, but around me. In a way where I often tell to my team that we are a bunch of great minds that don't think alike. And I think there's ability that Amazon has brought of community, sense of belonging. We're all stuck into the right core values that we live and breathe, but we've also brought diversity of perspective that really got us going and on that level of innovation. So these are my two
questions. And I suppose kind of being in Amazon not far off 10 years, could you kind of describe the change you've seen in like the growth of the company?
I certainly seen the change in standardization of processes that allowed us to obviously grow at scale. I've seen the change at which obviously we've been able to implement new things within a blink of an eye and then still innovate on behalf of our customers with, I would say, almost a simple and an easy way, in a smooth way. And we've still been very much rooted into every decision is a two-way door decision, so everything can be thought again and then we can revert back to the previous state. And I would say one thing that we've learned how to do extremely well is empowering our team members to do more and investing on that inner talent and balancing that off with external talent that we bring every day in the company. And I think that, the keep raising the bar concept, Amazon has done extremely well over the 9 years.
Yeah.
And it works.
Yeah, exactly.
It definitely works.
Brilliant. So next question, for all three, and we'll start with yourself, Priyanka. Okay, so could you kind of tell us the most valuable lesson that you feel you've learned professionally since you've joined Amazon?
Yes, I think the most valuable lesson is that I need to be more vocal when I think that I can't do things. I need to learn to say no when I think like definitely bitten more than I can chew. And obviously, like when you're fresh out of college, like you just want to do everything. You want to impress your manager, and you want that next promotion, and you don't want to come across as that person who's like, oh, this girl cannot do this because she says no a lot. But I think in the last few years, I've realized that it's okay to say no, rather than leading to a point when you're like, oh my God, I don't like this job anymore. So raise your hand and just say that, no, I do not have the bandwidth to do this, and I'd really appreciate your help in prioritizing or deprioritizing some of these projects from my portfolio. And it's a tough conversation. Like, I know that there is a lot of people in my team who still think that saying so is a weakness. I don't think it's a weakness. It's a sign of strength. If you want to protect your own peace of mind, you should be more vocal about what you can and you cannot do.
Yeah, no, and I think it's a really good bit of advice, even for all of you guys. If interviewing, we often speak to candidates who, say they've done this and that, and no workload is too much. But I think that moves away from one of our LPs, which is earn trust. I think holding your hand up and kind of saying when your plate is full gives you that earn trust piece more so than taking on that additional workload. So, no, really good piece of advice. And Anna, we'll ask the same question.
Let me do a survey. I'm the disruptive one. I
No,
know.
no, we'll go with however we want.
Can also checking if they're still awake. Also, because how many of you have been on a sailing boat, just powered by the wind, or have seen a sailing boat a bit? Yeah, cool. I think what I've learned in my 9 years at Amazon has been that you cannot definitely control the wind, but you can control how you set your sails. I like sailing outside of Amazon, like outside of my day-to-day, right? And I think what I've been noticing of this analogy is change in Amazon is constant. And change is that wind, that power changes, direction changes. You cannot control. So you need just to come to terms with the fact there are so many inputs and variables that you can't even influence, let alone control. What you can do, though, is how you react to those changes, and you can change that perspective on change in this case. So you can't control the wind, but you can change how you set the sails.
I'll definitely remember that one. And George, same question, mate. Best lesson you've learned since joining Amazon?
I'll try to pull off the example of the sailing because I also sail. See if I can link it. But I'll say I think we've heard a lot about opportunities to change within jobs within Amazon, changing your career focus throughout, etc. On a similar line, it's just taking opportunities when you see them. Same with sailing, when you think a different course might be slightly better for you, and that happens to come across you. Take it. Take some risks. I had the opportunity during COVID, which was a bit of an ambiguous time for a lot of people, and it was definitely very challenging to operate in the way that we used to in the past, to deploy a project in Japan. I was like, okay, I always wanted to go in Japan. This project sounds like it has a lot of difficulties as well that could help me. I think a lot of people were a bit worried, but I said, okay, let's take the risk. Someone is better than no one in this case, so it worked out okay.
Brilliant. I love to hear that. And I suppose not so much of a fun question, and we'll start with you, Anna. What has been your biggest failure at Amazon?
Oh, I have a long list. The biggest. Let me tell you this story. It was 2020, beginning of 2020, in the middle of the pandemic, actually. And it was the time I decided that I want to pivot my career into business intelligence. And at the same time, I also wanted to experience the North America supply chain team. So I was still stuck in London because I couldn't relocate. But I was leading a BI team for North America supply chain for the last mile, so Amazon Logistics. My team was responsible for sending the signals for volume forecast and uploading the signals into a tool that then would automatically send the signals to any downstream planning tools. So think about, they could consume this information to define how many people we needed under the roof of our delivery stations, how many drivers we needed out on road. So every day was a well-oiled mechanism. Every day, 5 p.m. Seattle time, the forecast had to be uploaded for the day after and a week in advance as well. For some reason, the wrong forecast had been uploaded. Not the one for April 2020, but the one for April 2019. To date, we still don't know how that got mismatched. Well, you can't imagine that in a situation where volatility and uncertainty was pretty much our bread and butter, that had quite a disruptive outcome. So within 2 hours, we had lost roughly $500,000 in lost capacity. And I had, after that, to provide what we call the COE, a correction of error, which is, again, a paper where you present, this has been the error, this is the new mechanism we're putting in place to rectify this and prevent this from happening again. But other than my writing skill and strengthening that concise communication, I've learned a lot from this failure. So the first was, I have been extremely transparent in communication to my stakeholders and people that were dependent on my team, and I received support from them. The entire community and support network was, let's look into the solution. Let's look into what can we rectify right now. We'll look at the aftermaths later on. So that level of transparency and communication, looking at problem solving rather than blaming culture, was one thing that I think at Amazon, anyone can actually say that's really rooted in the way we are. And then the second part was, everyone can definitely fail. And we should be very open about sharing those things. You know, I also said there have been double-digit number of roles that I applied for and didn't get. That certainly those failures had made me the person that I am and the successful career that I had at Amazon. So I still remember that. Really good. And your manager was the manager back then. So like, fun times.
And Priyanka, we'll move on to you next, please.
Yes. So as I was saying, right, in the beginning, when I was just this confused or curious person about what do I want to do with my life, and when I was transitioning from my BI role into product space, I interviewed with 2 teams. There was one team in, let's say, our 3P transportation network, and there was one team that works with our sellers directly. I think I really liked the role for the sellers team because they were going to build something like a credit score, but for sellers who sell on Amazon. And it was an S-team goal. For everyone's visibility, an S-team goal is like the goal that the senior most members of Amazon measure. So people like Andy and his directs, they will measure this goal. And it was very fun. Like, I really liked that project. I really liked the manager and everything. And then there was another role in 3P transportation. The role was, let's say, exciting, but not as exciting as the other role. But this was a technical product manager role. And I think I was, let's say, more greedy to stay in a tech role rather than give up my tech title and go into a pure product role. And I chose this technical product manager role over the non-tech product manager role. And I think when I joined the team, that's when I realized that I was not happy in that role, and when I started speaking with my mentors and my support network, everyone was like, but it is the most glamorous role in Amazon. Like, everyone is trying to be that person. Like, why are you so unhappy? And then, I started talking to more and more people, and people told me, it's okay if you don't like something. It's completely fine if you don't like something. Just move to a role which you enjoy. And but I think by then, the taste was so sour in my mouth that I just decided to leave Amazon for 1 year almost. And then I came back as a BI engineer manager. The learning from all of this is, be curious, inquisitive about different jobs and roles, but choose what is it that you like, not what is it that the peers or the society thinks is the right thing to do. People will say, oh, a PMT makes so much more money, stick to this, don't be stupid. But again, you can't put a price tag on your happiness. No. So choose what you like to do.
Really good.
Yeah.
Really good, Priyanka. Thank you. And George, yourself, mate?
For me, it's also an example from when I first started. I think it was just basically what Priyanka was saying earlier. I was just trying to be a bit too keen, get everything done right on time. So I got handed a few projects as part of my training period. They were deemed relatively easy, so I said, okay, I should definitely nail these. As part of the preparation for these projects on site, we had a deployment team coming, so we had a lot of contractors that were, coming with us to install a lot of equipment. And one of the prerequisites for us to be able to actually work on site was that the local site had to approve everything that we're doing from various levels, from processes, safety, impact, etc. And I was coming from a central team, like project deployment, that we basically done this project at multiple sites of Amazon all around Europe and the UK. And one local person was basically, denying that we couldn't start the project on site. And again, I was coming with the approach: this must happen. It's approved by senior leadership. It's very important for the business, etc., etc. But I didn't really take a step back to ask, why is this person pushing back? What is their interest in the site? Do they have any valid concerns, or am I disregarding them just because I want to get this project done? So I think that ended up being quite important. This was a safety-related topic, so we did eventually stop the project and say, okay, what do we have to do here? And we found out that what their point of view was actually applicable to a few other projects as well. So it was a good learning in the end. But I probably should have had a discussion even earlier when they first raised their first concern.
But I know, you have that tunnel vision to get the job done, and you're kind of thinking that way. But yeah, as you said, sometimes taking a step back can lead you in a few steps forward. So really, really good, George. Thank you. So final question for you all, right? And Anna, we'll start with yourself. So we obviously have 16 leadership principles that everyone is aware of. If you were to describe yourself as one leadership principle, what would that be and why?
Oh, this is a question. If you ask your best friend, what would they say, right? I'm frugality.
Frugality. Yeah,
I'm frugality. I'm do more with less, to go on efficiency and try to be as organized as possible to fit your agenda. Because I do have a bit of fear of missing out. Probably that's the driver. But no, I'm frugality.
Frugality, really good. Priyanka?
I think I'm learn and be curious. I'm really motivated by reading these random facts that nobody cares about. For example, you should not rinse off the toothpaste while after brushing, and people are like, why do you know this? Who told you about this? So in general, I like to read things which probably don't have an immediate impact on your work or on your life. And I'm just a curious person. Yeah. Yes.
Really good. And George?
I need to read it up on the toothpaste later. Definitely rinse mine off. I'd say I'm hire and develop the best. So we had a bit of a gap last year. I had to hire a team from scratch, basically. And I think it's super important to get the right people in the door first time round rather than having to deal with the situation afterwards. So I was both lucky and unlucky that I didn't have a team, but at the same time I could build it basically how I wanted. And then the more you invest in that process, the more people you end up interviewing and talking to. You see the different sort of skills that they have to offer, and you define what you need for that role for success. So I'm trying to put a lot of focus into that one.
Really good, really good. And thank you all so much, right? We really appreciate your support. I hope it's been kind of educational for you all. You've learned a bit more about Amazon. And also to our audience members here, those watching on YouTube, thank you very much for submitting questions, and apologies if we didn't get through them all. All right, so again, just a round of applause for our panel members, if possible. And I will pass you back to James Witcher. Okay, off this way. Brilliant. All right, thanks, guys.
There you go, that way. Thank you.
Brilliant stuff. Thank you, Jeff.
Perfect. Thank you, Anna, Priyanka, George and Jeff for participating in the roundtable. I hope you all found that super useful. I know they gave some really good answers, which is brilliant. Thank you all for attending today, whether you're here with us in person here in London or whether you are watching virtually online via YouTube. You came here to elevate your career, and we really hope that you leave with some really great useful information. To give an introduction to myself, if I wasn't able to speak to you before the event, my name's Amy McConnell. I'm a senior technical recruiter here at Amazon. Been based in this London office for around 7 years now. I have experience previously in finance recruitment, and then for the last 3 years I've been supporting tech recruitment here within operations. James and I will be walking you through the third and final section of the event today. We'll be going through a CV and interviewing workshop from the perspective of a recruiter. So this is what I like to see when I review a CV. I can provide you with some hints and tips. These will be some tips and tricks on how you can prepare your CV to stand out to recruiters like me, maybe within Amazon or maybe organisations outside of Amazon as well. And we'll also be giving you some information on how you can prepare for interviews, whether with Amazon, outside of Amazon, and we'll go through some hints moving forward. Great. So here I'd say are the most important hints and tips that I can provide, or a recruiter at Amazon can provide you when creating a CV. So there's 6 key tips here. Firstly, when we look at the structure of your CV, it's important to understand what should that look like? What should the layout be? For me, a really important part is making sure that it's in chronological order. You can start at the top by having a small blurb on yourself, who you are, potentially the role that you've applied to, a short brief introduction to really let me get to know you. A couple of sentences maybe about the role you're applying for, a section on your skills. We really want that to be relevant to the role. So for a technical role, whether that's a BIE position, data engineer, SDE, the technical skills will naturally vary, but me as a recruiter, I'm looking to pick out those key technical skills. That's the first thing that I kind of look for when I'm diving into a CV. So really make sure that those skills that you have and that you've used more recently are clear, probably somewhere near the top, so I can see it as soon as I review your CV. We're then looking to have your experience in chronological order. So we want your most recent experience at the top, least recent experience down at the bottom. That sounds really obvious, but sometimes when I'm reviewing CVs and it's the other way around, it does take additional time and it can make the CV look a little bit confusing. And if you think recruiters, especially at Amazon and I'm sure at other organisations, we review hundreds, if not thousands of CVs a month. Therefore, we want to make it as streamlined as possible when we're reviewing a CV. You can also include things like your key achievements, maybe your degree qualification is always a really important one, so whether you've got a master's, bachelor's, PhD, make sure that's very clear, and maybe any other qualifications that you've gained along the way as well. We want to make sure that there's a couple here that I think are quite relevant to one another. I think be concise and show achievements and use data to quantify can kind of go hand in hand. So when we're talking about show achievements and use data, as well as being concise, I'd probably recommend you write between 3 and 4 bullet points per role of a job that you've had. So if you're going in chronological order, your most recent experience would hopefully be near the top. Write 3 or 4 bullet points per role and really highlight the key achievements and accomplishments that you've had in that role. You know, I don't need to know the nitty-gritty day-to-day elements of the position that you're in at the minute. I just need to know what's the role about, what are the key things that you've delivered on, maybe some really great projects that you've been able to deliver on, and some really tangible data points there. So I'll go through this in a bit more detail when we're discussing interviewing, but it's actually super important to include data points and to be very clear with that. So if you're able to provide cost savings or time savings through a project that you've worked on at a previous company or at your current company, super important to provide those results in there. And then we're looking at tailoring your CV to the job description. So obviously when you're on the CV hunt, we know as recruiters, you're going to apply to so many different organisations. But I as a recruiter see time and time again, people providing CVs, maybe it has on the top Google or Facebook, and it doesn't make me feel very loved as a recruiter at Amazon when I see those different organisations. So make sure that if you are going to tailor your CV to a company, that you maintain that through your job search as well and keep that up to date. Consistent formatting, easy to read. It's very similar to kind of being consistent, being concise, having things in chronological order. Make sure that you're continuously using the same font, maybe even same size font. If you're bolding headers, make sure that that's continuous all the way through. Sounds very, very straightforward and probably something that a lot of you do already, but we do come across a lot of CVs that are hard to read and difficult to follow if we don't have that consistency of the formatting all the way through. And then lastly, in my opinion, you can never over-review. Probably similar to something you would do at your company at the minute if you're writing a paper for your current company, maybe back in your days at university, if you were writing a dissertation, you would probably have a colleague or somebody that you're close with that would review it for you. Same with the CV. Make sure that you're having somebody review that, because you can become a little bit blind to the information that you're reading and maybe miss out on certain spelling errors and things like that. So that's important, I think.
Perfect. So you've taken the Amy McConnell masterclass in CV writing there. You've attended the Elevate Your Career event, and where'd you end up? So I want to talk you through the recruitment process that you may potentially go through. So obviously it all starts with an online application, and all of our roles that we have here at Amazon, whether that's in the UK, across Europe or across the globe, are advertised on Amazon.jobs. You'll see them advertised everywhere else on job boards and LinkedIn, but everything is on Amazon.jobs. So that'll be your first port of call for applying for opportunities here. Once you've applied, your CV will end up with a recruiter. And it will be reviewed, and each application is then reviewed individually by a recruiter to assess your fit for the role. There's no keyword search filters here at Amazon. Every single CV is glanced over by a human eye by a recruiter to make sure that you're someone that we want to move forward in the process. You're not just filtered out. If you're not filtered out, we will be, depending on the role, moving to a technical assessment. So for roles maybe like an SDE, we may have a coding assessment that we will send you, and this will be sent to you over email. You'd have around 30 days to complete that. Ideally, as soon as possible. If I'm honest, we want to fill these roles, but yeah, that will be sent to you, and it's always dependent on role. It'll be online. And there's always a few reminders if it falls into your junk mail folder or anything like that. So we can always check with you in the process there. Moving forward, we'd kind of go back to a little bit more of traditional recruitment processes that you might be aware of. We move to a phone interview with the hiring manager for the role, and that will be going through your sort of competencies, your skills, your background, your career up until this point, and then we'll sort of focus on some behavioural questions that align with our leadership principles, the 16 leadership principles here at Amazon. Next, if successful, we get to our final stage. So what we call the panel interviews or the panel loop. So these consist of 4 to 5 interviewers, 4 to 5 interviews with different interviewers that take around 45 to 60 minutes. These are assessed on your functional skills, so it could be around coding again, system design, other technical competencies that we have. And we'll also have a look at some behavioural questions that align with our LPs once more. So, hopefully, we'd all get through to the phone interview and the final panel loop. How would you prepare for those? What's the best thing to do, and the best thing to consider? So there's a few questions that are always gonna come up, and you could easily kind of get prepped for. Why Amazon? Why do you want to work here? What motivates you about wanting to apply here and see your hopefully many years here? Why this role? I think we've all done it. We've all applied for roles a little bit willy-nilly here and there. We apply for a couple, and then we get forward in one, and we kind of, especially at that phone interview, what one was it again? Go back, read through the job description, remind yourself why it was that you applied and what it was you applied for. Having that information, understanding that is only going to stand you in good stead, especially at that phone interview stage. I've had many a phone interview with people who kind of, they don't know. It's the same back to Amy's point around Google or Facebook or anything like that. They're unsure who they know they're on with Amazon, but they're not entirely sure why they applied. So always good to go back and remind yourself of that. And then finally, always be ready for follow-up questions. We'll be doing a lot of, we'll be talking about behavioural questions a little bit later. But any example that you have prepared, practice out loud, think of the questions that your interviewer may follow up with, and be ready for the follow-up. Have an answer for the question after your initial answer. And any examples that you do have should be prepared in the star format, as you can see there at the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. And Amy's going to take you through what that is and why that's so important to the interview process here at Amazon.
Yeah, so the star format is quite a common template, I'd say, that's used when you're preparing for interviews. Probably many of you have seen that before. This is a format that we generally do adopt heavily here at Amazon throughout the recruitment process. This is the main way that we would tell you to prepare for any interviews that you have here. So follow these 4 sections, and it will really stand you in good stead for providing a really comprehensive example throughout the interviews. As James mentioned, the questions that we ask the majority of the time are based around Amazon's leadership principle questions. And the best way that you can format those answers is through these 4 techniques here. So it's called the STAR methodology: situation, task, action, and result. Situation. So we really want you to describe what the situation was that you were in, what was it that you were involved in, what were the extenuating circumstances. Really start to build the picture for us in terms of what that situation was, so that the interviewer can really understand that. The task. Really talk to us about the task that either you were given, or was it something that you decided to take upon yourself? I think that's really important to differentiate between. Was this something that you went outside of your comfort zone potentially and seeked for? Maybe you wanted to make improvements to the business. Whatever that case might be, really tell us what that task was. From there, when we've got that foundation, we can move on to those actions. And these are actions that you specifically took. So what were steps that you did in this scenario? And here is where we want to hear who you worked with. Did you work with, different teams, different parties? Did you all come together as a collective for the outcome? Or was this something that you really worked alone on? Because we want to see both examples at some point, but it's very important to tell us exactly the steps that you took and who you potentially worked with. And then the last part of this would be the result. So here is where we want to see that outcome piece. We want to see deliverables. We want to see really what was the end result that you had based on the previous three areas. Now, this is the point, and this is what I was mentioning earlier in your CV. And I think actually Stephen mentioned it before in his talk as well. Super important to add data points, quantification metrics. Amazon's an incredibly data-driven organisation. And if this isn't something that you provide up front, maybe if you're kind of questioning, which numbers to provide, the interviewer will definitely probe you for that. So make sure that if you have quantification, not always necessary depending on the example that you're providing, but if you have cost savings, if you have time savings, maybe based on a previous project you work on, make sure you're very clear with what they are, and that will help you to round out the story that you're trying to give. So here are a couple of examples of the leadership principle behavioural style questions that we have here at Amazon. So it gives you a good understanding of potentially, if you did go through the process, what you could expect. So the first one is, tell me about a time when you took on something outside your area of responsibility. Why was it important and what was the outcome? So this shows you potentially taking on a role or a task outside of your area of responsibility, as I mentioned before, to make it super clear. Showing you either pulling together as a team or individually to go above and beyond to get the task done.
I'd say that's ownership, if I was to take a guess.
Very good. And then the second one is, tell me about a time where you not only met a goal, but considerably exceeded expectations. How were you able to do it, and what challenges did you have to overcome? This particular question would demonstrate to me that I'm looking for a time when you've been able to deliver on a certain task. So this allows you to express a time where you felt like you potentially over-delivered or delivered to a high standard on a task.
I think you gave a bit of a hint away there when you were explaining it by mentioning around delivery. So I imagine that's deliver results. But I think it's really important on that piece to always, or not always, but if you want to say the question out loud to yourself again, it's really recommended, because sometimes as you say it back to yourself, you're starting to pull out little bits from the question, and then you can identify what leadership principle it might be and where you might want to take your example.
Okay, so this is some of the things that we've probably already gone through, and I think some of the do's are actually quite self-explanatory. So what I want to focus on a little bit here is what I would recommend you don't do when interviewing at Amazon. So the first thing is, try and avoid generalizing statements. Try and avoid generalization. We don't want to hear things like maybe, or I think, or roughly. We want you to be specific and use the time prior to your interview, as James was mentioning before, to really nail down those specific data points and details, so that you can be very clear in terms of what you want to get across, because our interviewers will want to understand the full picture and will likely probe for a little bit more information. Secondly is, don't embellish or omit parts of the story. So when I think about this, I would suggest, for example, instead of trying to make an example sound like you did everything, like you owned the project from start to finish, be very clear and be sure to tell us, who you worked with. Sometimes our interviewers can tell if you're trying to say you did everything, actually, is that really possible? So if you did actually work with other people, sometimes that's a really great positive. Who was involved? How did you partner with them? Because it shows us that you're able to work as a great team. And then lastly, don't rely on a single example. I think that's one of the key things that I say to candidates when I'm preparing them for interviews at Amazon is, time and time again, we come out of the final round of interviews and we think we've got a great candidate, but it shows that the candidate has used one example or two examples throughout every interview. And what that does sometimes is it maybe demonstrates to us that the candidate doesn't have the level of breadth of experience that we're looking for if they only want to focus on one or two single examples. So the time that you have before your interviews, when you're invited, whether that's a phone screen or an interview, really look through those leadership principles and try and think of an example, I would say, for at least each one of them. That way you know that you'll have enough examples to use throughout your interviews, and potentially you'll actually have too many. which is a great position to be in.
Absolutely, and I think we've all got that banker example in the back pocket that we always can pull out if there was an interview tomorrow. But it's a very common trap for us all to fall into.
And then finally, so the final slide really for today. It's very clear in terms of what it says, but be aware of timings, keep introduction concise, relax and be yourself. You know, those three do go hand in hand. You have 45 minutes to an hour interview with each individual person. Now that seems like a long time, but potentially when you've got a coding exercise and also maybe 1 or 2 leadership principle questions to ask, we also want to make sure you have the time to give us an insight into who you are, and also you have time to ask questions at the end. It's just as important for you to understand the team that you potentially will join as much as it is for us to understand who you are as a person and your skill set. So make sure you're absolutely being concise with those examples, but giving us those real important details. Enjoy the experience. I know sometimes interviewing can be super scary, especially when you feel like you have 4 or 5 interviews back to back, or maybe the space of a couple of days. But this is an opportunity for you, as I said before, to learn just as much about Amazon. So take the opportunity to ask those really difficult questions maybe to the interviewers. You know, you can challenge them as well, but don't try to calm the nerves and not be nervous about those interviews, because that's how we're going to get the best out of you, and that's how you'll get the best out of the experience. And then, as you can probably tell, dress code at Amazon, be comfortable. Obviously, if you'd like to wear a shirt, that's completely up to you. Wear whatever you feel comfortable in, but absolutely, if you feel more comfortable dressing casually, that's up to you as well.
Perfect. And that's a wrap. Thank you all for joining us today. We hope whether you're in the audience here or watching from home, you're able to gain some valuable information about Amazon operations as well as our recruitment process. Feel free to scan the QR code that's there on the screen to see our latest opportunities within OpsTech. As I said, loads of other roles on Amazon.jobs as well. We'll also follow up with a survey to get your thoughts on today's event. So it'd be really appreciated if you could fill that out. If you are here in London with us, you can enjoy the networking session we're about to put on. And there's some food and some refreshments for us all. And if you're joining from home, enjoy your evening. Thank you, everyone. Cheers.
Thank you.